where we'll be unaware of his intentions, he won't alter his actions. One man is taken into custody while another becomes a suspect. The entire United Kingdom is rocked by the emergence of criminal evidence. February 19, 2026. After leaving Royal Lodge, Andrew relocated into a rented home and was immediately handcuffed by Thames Valley Police on suspicion of disclosing confidential information about Jeffrey Epstein. The true shock, however, came later. Police found an enigmatic package during the search that suggested Prince William was also a part of it. The public's suspicions could be stoked by an old photo and an ambiguous handwritten note. William assisted with the investigation right away. However, security camera footage inexplicably disappeared at the most crucial time. Silent money transfers and the deletion of communication logs indicated that someone had planned a risky scheme within the royal family. William followed the trail in silence while Andrew waited behind bars. Was this a well-planned plot to bring the heir to the kingdom down with him, or was it just a legal scandal? And would the world still trust this family if the whole truth were revealed? February 19, 2026. The peaceful suburban streets of Buckinghamshire were being cut by a bitterly cold wind as the London sky was cloudy. At 6:45 a.m. the door of the modest two-story building was rocked by intense banging. Prince Andrew now resided in a rented home. The Thames Valley Police tactical team banged loudly, not in a courteous manner. The door flew open. With his hair unkempt and his eyes bloodshot, Andrew stood in a grey dressing gown. Due to sleep deprivation, the arrest warrant was read out in a chilly official voice before he could respond. Former Prince Andrew, you are being held on suspicion of abusing public office and disclosing national security-related secret documents and information transmission to the late criminal Jeffrey Epstein. Andrew took a step back and grasped the doorframe with shaky hands. What are you doing? His voice was a blend of anger and disbelief. The group surged. Within, a High Court judge's signed search warrant was displayed. A steel cabinet containing laptops, 2 cell phones, backup hard drives, and piles of paper documents was swiftly sealed and taken out. A number of police cars blocked the driveway. With his hands shackled in front of him, Andrew was led out. He walked stiffly, trying to keep his head up, but his shoulders slumped slightly, a blatant indication of the terror mounting inside of him. As law enforcement. As the automobile moved away, he noticed shadowy men observing from a distance through the tinted glass. This isn't just an arrest, this is a ticking bomb for the entire royal family, a young cop muttered to a colleague. The issue became even worse when police disclosed more charges a few days later. In addition to sending Epstein confidential documents, Andrew had purposefully tried to link Prince William, Princess Kate's husband and heir apparent, to Epstein's network within official channels and royal circles. The news quickly gained traction. Despite the royal household's lack of a formal declaration, public conjecture erupted. Go back to February 12, 1 week earlier. A significant number of classified Jeffrey The Epstein files were made public. Numerous influential people who had dealt with him were named in the records, exposing covert linkages to dubious operations. The most noticeable name was Andrew's. He had already acknowledged that he was friends with Epstein, that he had visited Little St. James Island, that he had been accused of a lengthy number of scandals, that he had lost his military titles, that he had been stripped of royal honors, and that he had lived quietly in a rented home. Following the reduction of his allowance, this time Andrew was well aware that there was no way out. He was aware that, as in the past, the royal family would swiftly cut all connections to preserve the institution's reputation. Slowly, desperation gave way to icy resolve. He wouldn't fall by himself if he had to. As word of Andrew's arrest continued to circulate throughout Kensington Palace's halls that afternoon, Prince William got a call from the Thames Valley Police Chief Detective. On the other end, the speaker sounded courteous but clearly serious. Your Highness, we need your assistance in the Prince Andrew investigation. Some information needs to be clarified and your being present would aid in avoiding any regrettable miscommunications. Despite the dreary weather, William was sitting by himself in his own study with a window overlooking a verdant garden. He put down the phone for a while and inhaled deeply. He was taken aback. He didn't know anything before, however, he also realized that any delay or rejection, no matter how slight, might be seen as evasion, and the public would quickly use it as proof. I'll Comply completely, he said in a cool but strong tone. Please let me know the time and place. In order to escape prying eyes, the meeting was held that very evening at a discreet spot close to the palace rather than the police station. The top detective, a sultaned, pepper-haired man in his 50s, gave a quick summary of what they had discovered. The fuzzy long-distance shot, the scribbled note accusing William, and the envelope in Andrew's desk drawer. Through a safe glass screen, he showed William reproductions rather than originals. William picked up the paper and looked at the lines that had been scrolled. No precise dates, no obvious sources, and no details that can be verified right away. The picture was much more shocking. Standing close to Epstein at a charity function more than 20 years ago was a tall, blonde person who clearly resembled William. His fist clenched in anger, but he put the paper down and, "I have never met Jeffrey Epstein privately beyond the public occasions everyone already knows about," he stated calmly. "We recognize that, but we must investigate every angle," the investigator nodded. After arriving back at the palace, William remained silent. He sat by himself in the dark, gazing out the window. The knowledge that the envelope had been discovered far too conveniently caused a profound uneasiness, not a dread of being implicated. The desk's middle drawer opened directly on top. Leaving such important evidence so exposed felt staged to someone with Andrew's level of skill, who always knew how to preserve vital material. He made the decision to remain silent, without going through the royal channels. William made contact with a private security force, which consists of former intelligence agents who are now operating autonomously under his direct supervision. "Examine the entire security camera system around Andrew's rented house for the past 2 weeks," he said over an encrypted channel. In less than 4 hours shortly after midnight he received the report. "Look for any gaps, edits or signs of tampering." As first reported, the technical team verified that the cameras had not merely malfunctioned. With the exception of a certain 2-day window immediately preceding the police raid, the gadgets were functional. There was no typical recovery trace because that section had been completely erased. The leader of the team whispered on the telephone, "There was no technical issue here. The system was intentionally deleted by someone who gained access to it. They were fully aware of what they were doing." William hung up and took a seat. Still in the shadows, his heart was beating more quickly than normal. Now he realized how much calculating was required. The royal family was forced to deal with a more serious internal problem when someone attempted to pull him into the vortex. More than in the past, Prince Andrew was obviously aware of the impending storm as secret Epstein files started to leak to the public several weeks prior to the arrest. His laptop screen was the only source of light as he sat by himself in his rented home's dim living room. In the blacklist, articles, scanned documents, well-known people, and his own name stood out the most. He took a long swallow from a glass of whiskey, feeling the burn travel down his throat. "They won't let me be," he said. Whispered to himself, Andrew refused to accept that fate, saying, "This time they'll cut me off completely." In his thoughts, a chilly notion gradually began to take shape. If he must fall, he wouldn't fall by himself. He had to escalate the matter to the point where the royal family had to step in at the highest level, and the only individual capable of creating that level of pressure was William. The heir apparent represents stability and the future of the monarchy. For over 10 years he referred to Marcus as his private secretary, the only individual who remains completely devoted. That evening Marcus showed up face pallid with anxiety. Andrew didn't spend any time. "Something is needed," a made-up piece of evidence that was convincing enough to convict William but not specific enough to be refuted right away. Marcus took a deep breath. "This is quite risky. I'm done if it's found," Andrew said in a cold tone. "However, the royal family will treat me like garbage if I go down by myself. They will need to bargain if William is implicated. To prevent a more serious scandal, they must either spare us both or at the very least reduce my sentence. Take action." Marcus was silent for a considerable amount of time, then gave a nod. There was just nothing he could do. He discovered someone competent through London's underground contacts who were experts in document forgery, photo retouching, and digital trail creation. In 3 days, the task was finished. A meticulously altered old photo from a charity banquet in the 1990s is accompanied by a handwritten note fabricated in Andrew's style, ambiguous references to meetings in New York, and William knows more than anyone. The angle changed, and the face was slightly obscured but still identifiable. Demonstrate authenticity, Andrew carefully inspected the package under the desk lamp after receiving it. For the first time in weeks, a small smile appeared on his lips. Excellent, he put the envelope in the most noticeable location unlocked directly on top of his desk was the middle drawer. He was aware that if he was taken into custody, the police would conduct a thorough search and discover it. Andrew relaxed and took another sip of whiskey. He felt an odd mixture of fear and excitement. He was aware of the great danger. There would be more charges if the strategy didn't work. Not only are confidential papers being leaked, but there is also proof fabrication and obstruction of justice. However, the fear of being totally even more was abandoned. They abandoned me long ago, he told himself as he gazed into the shadows. In the days that followed, Andrew kept a composed demeanor while reading newspapers, watching the news and waiting. Now I'll force them to look at me. He was aware that he was being watched. He was aware that an arrest warrant might be issued at any time. However, he was no longer able to run, and he did not fight when the time for handcuffs finally arrived. He simply focused on the lead officer's eyes and said a barely audible whisper, "Eventually you will have to let me go." Prince William did not wait to meet the top detective. Only one day later, the very next morning, Andrew summoned his private legal and security team to Kensington Palace for a secret meeting following his detention. Only those he really trusted, no statements, no publicity, speaking clearly and softly while seated at the head of the table. "We must retrieve all of Andrew's conversation logs from the last 3 months. I would like to know with whom he communicated, particularly during the 2 weeks prior to the discovery of that package." The head of security gave a nod. "We'll work with Thames Valley to coordinate. Access should be made available as soon as possible because the inquiry is growing." Data started to come in within 48 hours. Numerous important calls and communications were recovered by the Williams digital forensics team using sophisticated recovery tools, despite the fact that much had been erased. He was astounded by the outcome. In the week prior to the search, Andrew and Secretary Marcus's contact frequency had skyrocketed from an average of 2 to 3 calls per week to more than 15 calls in only 3 days. "Job done, placed correctly, and wait for them to find it" were among the ambiguous statements found in some recovered communications. William put the phone down and looked off into the distance. "This was no coincidence," he informed. "The head," he continued, saying, "they planned it and Marcus carried it out." William gave the order to check Andrews and his close colleagues' financial dealings. The results arrived sooner than anticipated. Victor Hale, a well-known London underworld expert in document forgery and photo manipulation, received £25,000 on February 14 from an intermediate account into his own account. No bill, no justification. William became enraged, but not because of the unfounded charge. Although he was accustomed to rumors, Andrew wasn't merely attempting to protect himself due to the scheme's brutal motivations. To do that, he was prepared to pull the whole family into the muck. Prince Andrew sat stiffly on the metal chair with his back against the chilly concrete wall of the bleak temporary holding cell at Thames Valley Police Headquarters. His already hollowed-out face was cut with deep shadows by the relentless fluorescent light. It had been 3 days since his incarceration, and the appearance of control was crumbling quickly. He had put all of his money on the fake envelope, causing enough mayhem to force the royal family to step in and engage in negotiations rather than desert him. However, the change was obvious because of the lawyer's regular updates. The focus of the investigation had abruptly shifted to Marcus. The door made of steel opened. His attorney came in with a strained face and sat down without saying anything. "They've formally summoned Marcus," he muttered. "This is a mandatory order, not voluntary compliance." Call logs demonstrating an abrupt increase in communication, partially restored deleted messages, and the transfer of £25,000 to Victor Hale have been recovered. As we speak, he is being interviewed. Andrew's fists clenched under the table as a chill of fear ran through him. Will he remain silent? The attorney shook his head slightly, uncertainly. Despite his years of loyalty, the evidence they are providing is devastating. Every strand points directly back to you if he breaks, which seems plausible. Andrew silently glanced at the wall before saying, "Reach him now. Tell him to wipe anything left uncovered and direct Victor Hale to disappear from London tonight. First flight." The solicitor nodded, took brief notes, and walked out, leaving Andrew alone once more and filled with genuine fear, not of jail or headlines, but of the one guy he had expected to turn against him. Marcus was sitting across from two detectives in an adjacent interrogation room at that moment, his hands shaking on the table while thick paperwork, highlighted phone logs, pieces of erased texts, and the damning transfer receipt were piled in front of him. "We have you and Prince Andrew exchanging more than 15 conversations in the 3 days prior to the search, far beyond your regular pattern, and we have the payment to the known forger, Victor Hale," the senior investigator said calmly. "Do you wish?" Marcus waited for almost 2 hours, repeating, "No comment. Should we wait for Hale to speak or tell us your side now?" But every folder was open, weakening his determination. Eventually, he let out a breath. Defeated, Andrew gave me strict instructions to set up counterfeit documents that implicated Prince William. The envelope is phony, the note is falsified, and the photo has been altered. The room fell still as the investigator stated calmly, "Can you prove the instruction came from him? He wanted it placed in the middle drawer, easy to find, so the palace would feel compelled to negotiate and protect him." "Yes, encrypted messages on Signal," Marcus said, lifting his tired, swollen eyes. "The admission spread like wildfire, and I stored a backup copy on my home computer." Earthquake. Within minutes, a team was dispatched to Victor Hale's flat in East London, where they discovered him zipping a suitcase next to a boarding pass for the late Madrid flight Marcus had instructed him to take. Hale was apprehended without a fight under interrogation. 2 hours later, Hale verified every detail. The hurried 3-day job that combined an outdated charity photo with a William-like figure over blurring the covert cafe handover. "I was just the technician," he insisted in an unsteady voice, "and they paid well. It wasn't until the story broke that I realized it involved the royal family." Late that evening, the chief detective made a personal visit to Kensington Palace. "Your Highness, the information on you was completely made up. We have full matching confessions from Marcus Langston and Victor Hale." William listened in quiet before responding calmly, "We will formally exonerate you within 24 hours. Prince Andrew had planned and orchestrated this to put pressure on the royal family to defend him." He put down the phone and felt a wave of relief. "Thank you, follow every procedure precisely. I want no room for doubt or appeal." However, it was overshadowed by a darker, more profound realization. Just 5 days after Andrew's imprisonment, anxiety inside Thames Valley headquarters was oppressive. His own uncle had been willing to risk the stability of the monarchy to save himself. The investigating team and a Crown Prosecution Service representative were seated in front of the chief investigator as he entered the sealed conference room with a heavy file. He spoke clearly and put the file on the table, causing silence. "We now have enough evidence to conclude that the documents that implicated Prince William were completely fake. Prince Andrew himself was responsible for the scheme, which was carried out through his secretary Marcus and forger Victor Hale. The recorded confessions made by Marcus and Hale had been cross-checked forensically. Checked and corroborated, Marcus acknowledged the entire procedure, including Andrew's direct command to find the forger, accept the documents, and put the envelope in the desk drawer. Victor Hale verified every detail on the evening of February 17. Unquestionably, a brief statement was delivered from Thames Valley to Kensington Palace and Buckingham Palace that afternoon. The investigation has found that the 25,000 LB transfer was traced back through intermediary accounts to Andrew's personal account. Prince Andrew is also accused of impeding justice and producing false evidence. Documents implying Prince William's involvement are completely fake. There is absolutely no proof connecting Prince William to Jeffrey Epstein or comparable actions. "You've been cleared," Kate said as she stood next to William, her hand lightly resting on his shoulder, after he had read the notification in his private study, put the paper down, and let out a big breath. William nodded, but there was no smile on his face. Cleared, but at too high a cost, he answered. He knew that even though the truth was out, the emotional wounds remained, not just for him, but for the entire family, Andrew was told in his cell. The lawyer came in with a harsh voice and said, "There's no way out anymore. They have financial records, forensic evidence, and confessions from Marcus and Hale." Andrew remained still and stared at the floor. He said, "I thought I was smarter than them," and for the first time in many years he felt totally alone, with no more contacts, no royal protection, and no chance of compromise. "As it happens, I was just foolish." Tears streamed down his cheeks, not because he was afraid of going to prison, but because he realized he had personally destroyed the last vestiges of his honor and family ties. Later, Andrew showed up in a dark suit, with a gaunt face and noticeably grayer hair, sitting across from investigators and admitted to all allegations, including obstruction of justice, leaking of classified material, abuse of public office, and fabrication of false evidence. A sentence decision had not yet been made. He lowered his head at the conclusion of the meeting and silently left. Marcus and Victor Hale were subject to further examination as accomplices. The issue was resolved legally, but the fallout persisted. The split between the royal family remained deeper than ever. Queen Camilla and King Charles III, despite their advanced age, confronted difficult questions. William and Kate attempted to keep up a steady public image by continuing their engagements, but private talks with other royals became fewer and more tense. From advisors, how to rebuild public confidence when a family member had compromised the institution itself. Following the first media frenzy, the British public was deeply disappointed. Many people who had previously backed the monarchy now openly questioned, what can we still believe if there are such conspiracies even within their family? Royal support fell to its lowest point in 10 years, according to opinion polls, while younger generations moved farther away, seeing the incident as the last evidence of an antiquated institution. On long nights, William would frequently stand at the palace window and look out at nighttime London, feeling the burden of responsibility more than ever, not just as the heir apparent, but as one evening he told Kate, "I don't hate Andrew, I'm the one who has to heal the wounds Andrew left behind. I simply regret that he took this route, but we must continue for the sake of our kids and the nation." The 2026. The Andrew affair turned into one of the darkest periods in the British royal family's history. It wasn't the biggest in scope, but it was the one that most blatantly revealed internal disintegration and served as a reminder to everyone of how brittle loyalty, honor, and authority may happen when someone is pushed to the brink, and even if the truth was exposed, the damage it caused would last long after any punishment was completed. If you were in William's shoes, would you have the composure to conduct your own investigation and deal with public suspicion head on, or would you feel so wounded and deceived that it would be impossible to forgive? Let us know what you think in the comments section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. Click the next video that appears on your display. You'll have fun.